So welcome everybody, and I begin tonight's event by acknowledging the traditional owners on the land of which we meet. I live and work on the land of the Kimberley people of the Yugambeh language region. I pay my respects to their elders, past and present, and I extend that respect to Aboriginal Islander people joining us here tonight. Welcome. I'm quite excited about tonight, as you're going to be hearing from two very experienced practitioners and experts in the how-tos of energy savings. So it's going to be a full night. You'll be hearing from Dr. Wendy Miller and Sebastian Prangle, who will present, and then there'll be a generous time just to do questions and answers. So please have your questions ready and pop them into the Q&A after those presentations. And without further ado, let's start Wendy, and I'll introduce Dr. Wendy Miller. Dr. Wendy Miller, as an Associate Professor in Energy and Buildings in QUT's School of Architecture and Built Environment, Dr. Wendy Miller conducts socio-technical research in energy efficiency and renewable energy, particularly focusing on the built environment. Her work has focused on applied research, going into homes and buildings to measure the impacts of energy efficiency actions, or establishing living laboratories to test ready-to-market technology that can benefit the renewable energy transition. She is Australia's representative for an international collaboration on resilient cooling. She was invited to represent Australia's interest in last year's Future Building Forum, looking at how to decarbonise the world's existing buildings. Welcome, Wendy, and I'll allow you to share your screen and start.
Great, thanks very much. I presume this screen is up now?
No, you just need to share the screen. There we go.
Okay, excellent. Even though I work in the area of energy in buildings, that part of my career actually developed after doing stuff as a householder first. So I want to focus tonight a lot on what we've done as a family and what we've learned as a family and as a professional in this field. I particularly like the cartoon on this slide, which actually comes from a German magazine, because we often compare the fuel efficiency of our cars. You know, how many litres per 100 kilometres do your cars do? But we don't do the same with our houses, with our buildings. And I think that's something really important that we need to do. So I wanted to start tonight, first of all, by talking about our family's renovation journey. So we bought a 1970s house in 1987, a 2-storey brick veneer house, and we had 3 children under school age. And I really feel for the people paying mortgages and stuff at the moment with the interest rates, etc. So when we purchased this house in 87, our interest rate was about 6%. And within 2 years, it went up to 17.5%. So for the first couple of years, just managing to pay off to meet the mortgage repayments was the focus. But after a little while, our focus was actually on trying to renovate this house to achieve a number of things. First of all was to reduce our family's greenhouse gas emissions, because around about 1995, we went to a seminar somewhere and were reminded that the greenhouse gas emissions that came from our electricity use would live in the atmosphere for 60 to 100 years. So we wanted to do something to reduce our contribution to what was then a fairly emerging greenhouse gas emissions problem. This house also had no insulation at all because it was built in the early 70s, so there were no energy efficiency requirements. So it was very hot in summer, particularly upstairs where all the living spaces were. We would often find ourselves sleeping on the floor downstairs in summer because it was very hot. And because of the high mortgage rates, etc., we also needed to rein in our energy bills. So our goals were those 3 things: the environmental responsibility, improving comfort, and reducing electricity bills. But our strategy was focused on long-term savings, not the upfront things. And the strategy was to do things one at a time, mostly all do-it-yourself actions, and do things as maintenance required being done on the house or as appliances needed replacing. So we had a long-term goal that when the electric hot water system would break, we would replace it with a solar hot water system. When the tiled roof needed repointing, we got that work done, but also changed the colour from a dark red to an off-white. And those things in themselves reduced energy consumption and heating. We added insulation under the tiles by crawling into the ceiling space and actually stapling foil underneath the rafters. We added ceiling insulation. We put insulation in the western walls where the bedrooms were. We changed some of the windows to casement windows that could catch the breezes, because sliding windows don't allow much air to come into the house if it's square on to where the prevailing breezes are. A range of other things. So some of those putting on thermal curtains. When the fridge needed replacing, buying the highest star rated fridge at the time. When the stove, when the washing machine required replacing, making sure we got the most energy and water efficient washing machine, etc. So by the time we sold the house then in 2007, we had, as this is the ad that we used for selling the house, with solar hot water, solar electricity. We were growing a fair bit of our own vegetables. We had rainwater, grey water. We had done the insulation, external shading, better ventilation, etc. And at that time, the interest in sustainable homes for sale was not really great, but the house did sell within a week on a private market without going to a real estate agent, which was really interesting. So out of that, our learnings from that journey, we used that, and my emerging journey at the time as an academic to design and build a house now here on the Gold Coast, which is all electric. We currently use 3 kilowatt hours per day of electricity for a family of 2. Whereas for our previous home in Brisbane, for a family of 5, we started at 22 kilowatt hours per day and got it down to 5.7. So our goal as a family has been, can we get our consumption down to 1 kilowatt hour per person per day? We haven't managed to do that yet. However, in the 3 kilowatt hours a day that we currently use, that covers all of our household energy and charges all of the batteries for all of our yard maintenance equipment, so electric mower, blower, that sort of thing. It also covers all of the energy that would be required to run a communication system and pump our water, because we're water self-sufficient as well. So it is covering more things than what we thought initially. So from those 2 things, our main tip, so this is my personal tip and also my professional tip for other households, whether you're renting or owning a house, is first of all to focus on how much electricity you use rather than what the dollar amount is that comes on your bill. So you can look at how many, so electricity is measured in kilowatt hours, and you can look at how many kilowatt hours you use compared to the size of your house, so per square metre, for example, or kilowatt hours per person, which is what we decided to do. And you have to be really aware of the comparisons that are on your electricity bill. So when you open up your, let's say your Origin or AGL bill or something, they're required by law to say, how does your bill compare, how does your usage compare to other households? But it's a really simplistic comparison. So let's say it was Origin, they just look at how many Origin customers or how many electricity customers are there in a particular region, how much energy total did all those households use, and they divide it by the number of households. What you don't know is whether those households are all electric, or whether some of them are using gas for their cooking, for their heating, etc., whether those households have pools or not, and whether those households have solar panels on the roof or not, which all affect. So what they're only looking at is the average electricity purchased across a region by different households. So it doesn't really give a realistic view for you to make your options. Why do we suggest that you look at how much? For two reasons. Well, the main reason is that the cost of electricity can vary a lot, and it has forever, and you have no control over the actual cost of the unit of electricity and how much you get charged per day, etc., etc. But you can control how much you use. So put yourself in a controlling position of being able to look at. It's the same as if you're looking at the cost of food. You can control how often you eat out, or where you eat out, or what types of food you buy, and by making some choices you can control how much that costs. So the benefits of looking at how much you use rather than how much it's currently costing is you can lower your greenhouse gas emissions, and if electricity prices rise, it doesn't impact you as much. And it also means that if part of your goal is to put on solar panels on your roof and or battery systems, a smaller system can actually meet your needs than having to put on a big system. So our use, for example, at the moment, we're using 3 kilowatt hours a day. So we are net positive, which means we're actually generating more electricity than what we use, but our solar panels are only 1.7 kilowatts, whereas the average size systems that are being put on households at the moment are between 6 and 10 kilowatt systems. So the costs are a lot less if you reduce your use first and reduce waste first. Okay, but having said all that, I just want to spend a little bit of time just focusing on space heating and air conditioning, because in Australia generally, space heating and cooling accounts for somewhere between 40 and 60% of most households' bills. But there again, that figure can be misleading because it depends on whether you live in a cooler climate or a hotter climate, and whether you have aircon or not, and how that aircon is operated and how efficient your house is before the aircon is put in. But the indoor conditions of a home impact on multiple systems. So there's a little bit of a diagram on the right that talks about thermal comfort. So that's the temperature inside the home and the indoor air quality and the acoustics in a home and the lighting within a home. They all have energy impacts and they all impact on each other. So thinking of multiple benefits and multiple options for each of those things can improve the indoor environment of your home, and making the building as resilient to heat as possible provides multiple benefits in all those things. So I just want to talk about a few of those things in the next 2 slides. So I found that a good way of thinking about what to do with the house is to think about the Skin Cancer Council's campaign, the slip, slop, slap, seek and slide. So, you slip on a shirt, slop on sunscreen, slap on a hat, seek shade and slide on your sunnies. Those same 5 things can apply to a house. So instead of slipping on a shirt, think of your house as what materials and insulation provide the protective layer against the sun, just as a long sleeve shirt provides a protective layer between the sun and your skin. The slop on sunscreen can refer to the colour of the materials, particularly the external walls and the roof, that lighter colours reflect more of the sun's radiation than darker colours. And the colour of a roof or of a wall does not impact on the cost of a building. It's just an aesthetic thing. So choosing light colours can really make a big difference to how much heat comes into your house that you then have to pump out. Slap refers to, so it's a slap on a hat. So think of the eaves of your house and or external shades and landscaping, that do they all provide shade for walls and windows? So in the Gold Coast, because of our latitude, a house really, if you want to avoid all sun shining on your external walls and windows in the summer months, you need to have an eave of about 900 millimetres. So 900 millimetre eaves will make sure that the sun does not hit your walls or your windows at all between mid-October and mid-March, so the two equinoxes. Seek shade is looking at the actual design or floor plan of the house, and are there shady spaces or cool spaces that you can retreat from the heat. And the slide on sunnies refers to actually the glazing that you use in your windows. If it's tinted, for example, like your sunglasses are, it can also reduce solar radiation into your home. So I find that those 5 words are really a good clue for for prompting what types of actions can happen. And then just a little bit of word about air conditioners. It's interesting that if you follow the history of the growth of air conditioning, which came out of the USA, that air conditioners were, first of all, introduced for industrial purposes, actually in a newspaper factory, to try to stop the humidity from destroying the ink in the paper. And it moved into housing as a means of making sure that there was demand for the new coal power stations that were at the time. And the building industry decided that it was cheaper to build, excuse my words, crappy houses with little insulation or shading and put in an air conditioner than what it was at the time to actually build houses that didn't require air conditioning. So the whole history of air conditioning is interesting to watch. But in essence, an air conditioner is a pump, and it pumps heat from your house to the outside air. And because we're living on the Gold Coast, quite a few people are boaties. So think of a boat. So if you have a bigger boat, you most likely have a bilge pump, and that pump is required to pump the water that might make its way into the boat. If you have a smaller boat, you might just have a bucket tied to a rope, and you use that to sort of bail out the water as it comes in. And I'm sure no boatie will think of, if they have a boat that has lots of leaks in it, so it's lots of water's coming in all the time, they don't think, oh, I'll just keep on getting a bigger bilge pump. What they do is fix up the leaks first. And that's what we need to do with our houses. We need to fix the leaks first to stop the heat from coming in, and then you don't need as big a pump, an air conditioner, in order to make the conditions good. So a couple of things. So the first question to ask is, can you improve the house? So the things that we mentioned before, so it doesn't need as much heat pumped out in the first place. And if you do that, you can increase the time when no air conditioner is needed. So for example, in the Gold Coast, 65% of the year, the outside temperature is between 20 and 26 degrees, which is considered a really comfortable temperature for most people. 95% of the year, the temperature is between 18 and 28. So if you're comfortable in that temperature range, you can actually have a house in the Gold Coast that doesn't require any air conditioning. Addressing humidity might be a slightly different thing. The second thing is regarding the condensers. So most Gold Coast homes, if they have air conditioners, they are a split system. So there's a wall-mounted thing in the house that provides the cooling, and you have an outdoor unit, that's the condenser, and that's where it gets rid of the heat. But often these condensers, as I've found in taking photos around southeast Queensland as well as Townsville, for example, a lot of these condensers are on the western side of the house in the full sun. And therefore, it's hard for them to get rid of their heat because they're trying to put that heat into already heated air. So if you can find ways of shading the condenser, that can help the air conditioner to run to its best efficiency. The third thing is relating to ceiling fans. Ceiling fans, in my opinion, are a must in the subtropics and the tropics. The ceiling fan, a good ceiling fan, doesn't reduce the air temperature, but what it does is creates air movement, which helps your skin, it helps evaporation from your skin. So it provides a cooling effect of somewhere between 2 and 7 degrees, depending on how humid it is. So you might find that try ceiling fans first might be really good if the temperature is somewhere around the 26 to 30 degrees. Above 30 degrees, you might find that you need the air conditioner as well, and that the fans will help, still help with the evaporation of your skin, but it will also help distribute the cold air around the room as well. But you need a good fan. Sometimes I know Energex and Ergon used to have on their website that the most efficient that you should have your thermostat, your air conditioning thermostat set to 24 degrees. That's actually not scientifically correct. The aim of that information when it was published was to try to get people to not have them at 18 or 20 degrees. So they're trying to get people to put them up to 24. The actual best setting for your aircon is the highest setting that provides comfort for you. In our trials of houses in the western suburbs of Brisbane, we found that people are often happy somewhere between 26 and 29 degrees with their air conditioner, and the higher ones, particularly if they have ceiling fans. What you really want to try to do is reduce the difference between the outside temperature and the indoor temperature. So if it's 34 outside, you might find that 28 or 27 inside is quite comfortable enough rather than the 24. It's roughly 10% savings for every degree you can lift up the air conditioning temperature. And the last thing about the air conditioners is that the more modern inverter type air conditioners are much more efficient than older types. So if you have an old window box RAC system or something, and yeah, so that's probably enough on that anyway. I'll just quickly go. And how do you know all of that? And this is something I think that Seb might cover a little bit later. So Australia has something called the National Home Energy or House Energy Rating System. So this is an energy rating that's required to be done for all new dwellings and all major renovations. I just want to speak a few minutes about that. And essentially all the physics of materials and how the sun moves in the sky and how materials absorb heat or give out heat, etc., is put into a computer program. And then an energy assessor puts in the floor plan of the house and the geometry of the house, and they put in all of this information about the walls and the roof and the ceiling and all the window styles and door sizes and types, etc. And all that information is married with the climate of a particular location. So what it comes out with is, say, this floor plan, for example, for this house in Southeast Queensland. So here's the front door, going up the hallway to an open plan kitchen living area. We have a master bedroom, an ensuite on one side, 2 bedrooms on the other, and kitchen laundry. So all of that information together is used to calculate for each room the expected hourly temperature of each room for a whole year. And using that information, it then comes out with an energy rating certificate, which actually calculates how much energy do you need to pump out of that house in order to make those rooms a particular temperature. So roughly 25 degrees for living rooms during daytime hours and into the evening, and about the same for bedrooms in the late afternoon and overnight. So a certificate gives you an idea of how comfortable or uncomfortable a house will be and how much energy you're going to need to buy to pump out heat. The new certificates that are only coming into place later this year will also give a whole of home rating. And I think, Seb, you might be talking about that a little bit later. In essence, it gives all that information, as well as how much energy your hot water system, any air conditioners and any pool pumps, etc., going to use, and what size PV system or solar system do you need in order to meet that energy requirement. So my overall advice, if you're designing a new home or doing a major renovation, that you insist on working with an architect or a design company that works with an energy assessor that actually optimises the design for energy efficiency during the process, rather than just get a certificate at the end of the process. You need a certificate before you can get building approval, but too often people are using, building companies are only getting the certificate as a means of getting approval. They're not using it as a means of making the best house. These slides will be distributed later, so there's a couple other, for more in-depth sort of information about any of those things, there's some links to some more information there. And I've prattled on long enough, so sorry and thanks for that. Need to unmute.
You'd think that I'd know how to do that. Thank you. Pardon me. You'd think so, but I haven't. Wendy, amazing. Lots of questions there for me, as well as I think there's some other questions I've just got to, I can't remember that fact. So I'm looking forward to talking with you afterwards, and there'll be more questions from the room. So let's add those questions into Q&A. And let me pause. Seb will be talking next. So Seb, I'm going to do your introduction whilst you go behind the screen, start doing sharing a screen, and I'll just introduce you to the group. So Seb is a sustainability consultant specialising in residential energy efficiency and renewable energy. His article, Energy Saving Rental Makeover, was recently published in the Renew magazine issue 161. An accredited assessor for the Residential Efficiency Scorecard program, he sits on the National Assessor Group and the Scorecard Quality Advisory Panel, and has delivered practical training days to trainee assessors. The Residential Efficiency Scorecard is a nationwide tool that has been designed to help households better understand the energy performance of their homes. Seb is also a board member of Zero Emissions Byron. Take it away, Seb.
Thanks, Judy. Hi, everyone. So I'm going to start by talking a little bit about energy efficiency in general, sort of doubling back on what Wendy was talking about, with some visual cues on some of the main things in your house that you can address to reduce energy consumption, energy bills, carbon footprint, whatever your motivators are. And then I'm going to talk about the scorecard, Residential Efficiency Scorecard tool, which is related to what Wendy was talking about at the end there in terms of NatHERS, the NatHERS program for assessing a house. But Scorecard is a tool for assessing existing homes. So you don't have to be building a new house in order to be able to have an assessor rate your house and identify what you can do to improve its energy efficiency. So we'll get to that in a little while. But by way of introduction, I just wanted to put this first slide up because it's one of my favourite sayings or catchphrases in relation to energy efficiency. And as much as I'm a big fan of renewable energy, solar and so forth, I'm also a strong believer that we need to reduce our demand for energy in the first place in order to reduce the need for the infrastructure, the solar farms and so forth, to provide the power that we need in our homes. And it's really important in talking about demand, energy demand, to appreciate that it's not about energy rationing. You don't have to be chasing the kids around the house, getting them to turn off lights in order to save energy in your home. There's so many ways of doing it that are technological, easy DIY fixes that don't require behavioural change, which I'm sure you'll be happy to know. So I'll just go to my next slide. This is just a general picture of a house to show all the different aspects of things that can affect its sustainability and energy consumption in general. And we're going to do a quick whip around of these in the next slides. But like I said, there's a few main categories of things we can do to reduce a home's energy use. And they can range from behavioural, as I said, doing things differently, to low-cost DIY improvements like draft proofing, sealing up gaps, stopping your house being leaky, like the leaky boat, and then all the way up to higher cost but more and often more effective technology like hot water heat pumps and efficient air conditioner heat pumps. So I'm not going to go into these in any detail, but these are some of the main categories and some of the things that Wendy's already spoken about that affect the energy of your home. And like she said, heating and cooling can be 40, 50, 60% of a home's energy use, especially in colder climates or in really hot climates where they're needing to use air conditioning a lot of the time. And the efficiency of the technology you use will have a big impact on your energy bills, but also there's lots of things you can do to reduce the need for artificial heating and cooling, such as good window coverings, glazing on windows, ceiling fans, all sorts of things. You don't have to be spending a lot of money on super efficient technology. It's interesting when he was talking about optimal temperatures for air conditioners. This is often what's espoused, different ranges depending on winter versus summer. And it's a good point that she made, because in where I am today, I'm actually down in Melbourne visiting, and it's very hot outside. It's a dry 32 degrees, and I've got my aircon on 29 degrees. And a lot of people would think, oh, he's an extremist. He's just living in really uncomfortably to save energy. But it's so true that just even having that indoor temperature a few degrees different from outside, and also taking out the humidity from the air, makes you feel a lot more comfortable than being exposed to the dry 32 degrees that's outside. And, everyone feels heat differently as well. So you can adjust that temperature slowly down till you get to a comfortable position. And in winter, the reverse, start it on 17 degrees and see how that feels with a good jumper on. And then if you're still cold, put it up to 18, 19, and so forth. If you have kids that are feeling it, put it up to 20. It's not a fixed figure that you need to be aiming for. Okay, hot water. Hot water heat pumps, this is one here, is like an air conditioner, but it does the same thing for water. So it takes heat out of the atmosphere and pumps it into the water that you use for your hot water. Almost identical technology to an air conditioner, but pumping heat into water instead of heat into or out of a home. And another factor with hot water, which not everyone thinks about, is the shower head that you have and how much water it's dispensing is a huge factor in how much hot water you're using, and therefore how much energy you're consuming. So, for example, if you have a shower head that produces 7 litres of water a minute instead of 15, you've effectively halved your hot water bills for the cost of about $80. And hot water is often about 30% of a home's energy use, and sometimes up to 50%. And of course, we have solar hot water. Insulation, I'm going to start moving a bit quicker now so I can get on to talking about scorecard. But Wendy talked about insulation, huge factor. And this picture here shows that not only the ceiling, but also ideally your walls can be insulated, and also your subfloor, depending on what climate you're in and whether you're needing to protect your house from heat outside or cold, keeping heat inside. Draft proofing, that's about fixing those leaks that Wendy was talking about. Many different aspects of that, and often things that you can DIY with materials from online energy efficiency stores or from hardware stores. And lastly, I think, is window shadings critical. If you can stop, in hot climates, if you can stop direct sun pouring into your house, then you're halfway to keeping it a comfortable temperature. And that can be anything from external trees, shading the western wall of your house, for example, through to external blinds and awnings. Internal blinds are also good, but if you can do external, it's even more effective in that it stops the heat getting through the window in the first place. Okay, so on to talking about scorecard. So the Residential Efficiency Scorecard is a tool that was developed by the Victorian government to help homes reduce their energy consumption and thereby their energy costs and their carbon footprints. And so in 2021, it became a national tool, and I jumped on to get accredited because I was really looking for a way that I could deliver comprehensive energy assessments into people's homes. So this tool is similar to NatHERS that Wendy was talking about, except that it rates and assesses existing homes as opposed to new builds and looking at the design of a home. And similar to the new whole of home tool that's coming out for assessing designs, it also looks at the fixed appliances like hot water and air conditioning and to see how efficient they are, and that factors that into the overall assessment of your house. This is some of the things that an assessment looks at, and you need to have a qualified assessor to come and do it. It has to be on site. They can't do it remotely. They come and visit you, do a consultation and model your house in the scorecard software. So the same things we've just been talking about, wall and floor materials, insulation, windows and eaves, how leaky your house is in terms of gaps and drafts, what sort of heating and cooling systems it has, lighting, curtains, solar, whether you have solar panels and so forth. So we'll talk a bit more about why this is a useful thing to do. So a scorecard is a tool to rate the efficiency of a home, similar to the way that washing machines and fridges are rated. The difference is it doesn't just give you a rating and leaves you with a house that's potentially inefficient, but it gives you the advice that you need and the prioritization to take action to improve the star rating of your house and thereby improve the energy demands and carbon footprint of the home. So it tells you where the energy is being used in your home. It makes recommendations to reduce that energy use. It rates how well your home will perform on very hot and cold days. So in terms of understanding comfort and what you can do about improving thermal comfort. And it's delivered by knowledgeable accredited assessors like myself. You also get a certificate for your house, which you can use just for your information, or also it's valuable if you're selling the house. If you want to sell it as an energy efficient home, you can demonstrate that by this certificate. And you can also, even renting a house, more and more the government is looking at making it compulsory, we hope, that a house is assessed this way so that when you're renting and buying a house, you will know what it's going to cost you in energy and how poor the design is and how much work it needs to make it a low carbon, low energy house. So the certificate's really useful. I'll whip through what it covers. This is a two-page certificate. The first is the headline star rating out of 10, and that's essentially a cost metric. So it talks about how much it costs to run the home to keep it a comfortable temperature all year. And as an aside, this is an indication in Victoria, in any case, the cost of energy depending on the star rating of a house. So the average home, which is 3 stars, you're looking at around $1,700 a year to run those fixed appliances, heating and cooling and so forth. Whereas an 8-star house, you're looking at energy bills, well, an energy cost of $260. So there's a huge range, and it goes to show it really can hit your hip pocket, improving the efficiency of your house. On the next page of the scorecard certificate, it talks about comfort rating, and that's how well your house protects you from extreme temperatures outside, even if you didn't have any air conditioning or artificial heating and cooling. And it also shows you what your star rating would be if you had a modest solar system, or if you have solar, what it would be if you didn't have that solar system, so the underlying efficiency of the house. On the second page, it breaks down the appliances in the home and helps you understand what they're contributing to your overall energy costs. And so that's after the assessor has inputted in the exact model and star rating of those appliances. So it knows exactly what you've got and how efficient they are relative to what else is out there on the market. And it also then makes recommendations based on the modelling and what's been inputted as to what you can best do to improve it. And last but not least, in the fine print, which is the part I like the most, it shows you the carbon footprint of the house, this figure here. So in this house, it's 5.5 tonnes. And so as you make improvements to the house, the assessor can update your certificate and show you how much carbon you've saved on an annual basis and how much energy that you've saved by those actions. You can also compare potential actions by doing those, what we call a variation assessment. So how does the process of getting a scorecard assessment work? First of all, you find an assessor, and there's a page with a list of all of the assessors. There's a couple of us, or a few of us, that service the Gold Coast, if that's where you are. I live in northern New South Wales. There's a couple in the Gold Coast, and there's also a couple of scorecard assessors in Brisbane who travel down to southeast Queensland. So then we visit your house and complete the assessment, enter in all the details of the building construction, the appliances, window coverings, everything. Then we give you the feedback and a consultation along with your certificate, and send you the final certificate by email. So that's Scorecard. And here's a quick plug from me, my website, if you want more resources. I've got lots of blogs on there relating on energy efficiency, lots of interesting reading, and also a resources page for all sorts of tips and tricks, covering a lot of what I've covered tonight. So that's me, and I will just hopefully stop sharing and hand you back to Judy.
Oh, thanks so much, Seb. That was great. And to Wendy, I've got lots of questions, so let's open this up for questions now. So please put your questions in the Q&A. And if you're okay about it, I'll actually try and pull you in from the room, and so that you can ask directly with your questions. So go ahead and put some questions there, and I've got a question to start with.
There's been 2 questions on the Q&A that I've entered as Seb's been talking as well.
That's great. So let's read those quickly. What's a good fan? So Wendy, what is a good fan?
So in Australia, fans don't have an energy rating, but in the USA, they're required to have a rating for their efficacy, so how much air movement they move per minute, their energy efficiency, so how many kilowatt hours they require to run, but also their acoustics, so how loud they are. One of the jobs that I'm doing is trying to talk the Australian government into putting those same efficiency requirements on the labelling of fans. So not all fans are created equal. Some of the, you can buy $60 fans or something in a hardware store and they are noisy and don't move much air. Not all fans are created equal.
Thank you. And the next one is, Wendy, you've answered this game, but I think it's still good just to talk about it. So is the Energy Efficiency Scorecard the same as the other star ratings for sustainability?
So I entered this first. I'll just do my bit and then Seb can provide more. So the Energy Efficiency Scorecard is for residential buildings only. And it's very similar to the NATHERS energy certificate that's required for new houses and new apartments and major renovations. It's not the same as a Green Star rating that commercial buildings use, and it doesn't rate all sustainability things. It's very much energy focused. Seb, you might have more to add to that.
Yeah, that's pretty much right. And this year, Scorecard is coming under the NATHERS umbrella. So there will be the existing NATHERS tools that rating thermal performance for new builds, and then there will be Scorecard for existing homes. It'll be called the in-home tool rating, and then there's the whole of home that you talked about. So once we have whole of home for new builds, which includes appliances and Scorecard, there will be much better synchronicity between the two, because at the moment, often the star ratings do align, except that if the house has really bad or really good appliances, that then changes the star rating to be different to what it was rated when it was designed. So when they include those things in the NATHERS, the existing NATHERS, then they'll both be looking at the whole house.
And just to reiterate that it's not whole of sustainability though, it's only rating on the energy related things. So it doesn't look at your water efficiency, it doesn't look at the embodied energy of the building materials, but those things are likely to come into the National Construction Code for housing sometime into the future. But at the moment, both those rating things are all energy related.
Thank you. We've got a few more questions here. So Sarah asked, Sarah, would you like to ask this live? I'll see if I can pull you in for that. Sarah, if you could just answer from the room, thank you. You're on.
And thanks so much, Wendy and Seb. That was really, really interesting. I'm just wondering with the shower heads, I never actually thought of the fact that obviously if you've got a more efficient shower head, that can reduce your hot water bill. But yeah, really interesting to know. And I was just wondering what sort of litres per minute ratio we should be aiming for with that.
7.5 is a good guide. So 3-star Wells rating. You can they're pretty easy to get now at a hardware store, and with different types of heads to retrofit with whatever you've got. If you want to go a bit more hardcore, you can get from some online websites like a 5.7, 6 litre per minute shower head. And they've got pretty good technology so that it's not like showering under a drip. It's really just disperses the water well, and so you get a good shower from them.
I think that in Queensland it's a requirement that you can't use anything that's more than 7.5. I think it's part of the the water efficiency regulations that were brought into Queensland in the mid-2000s when we were going through the drought. So you shouldn't be able to buy from any supplier in Queensland shower heads that are over 7.5.
Yeah. When we do a scorecard assessment, one of the things we do is actually get in your shower and measure the flow rate and tell you what it is, and then recommend what to get from there. But you can do it yourself with a bucket and a timer.
Wonderful. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Any other questions from the audience? I've got a question. Oh, sorry. Here's a question. Is an instantaneous hot water system similar to a heat pump system?
No, an instantaneous hot water system is like boiling your water in the electric jug. So it's as you turn on the water, the heating coil heats up and it just heats the water that you're using at a time. So it's more efficient than the old electric hot water systems in that you're not heating a whole tank of water. You're only heating the water that you're using, but it is using an electric resistive element. So it's less efficient than a heat pump system, which is less efficient than a solar hot water system. So it's all matters of degrees, but not all technologies can be fitted to all houses and all situations. So particularly in high-rise units or something, sometimes the instantaneous electric heating is the only efficient option that you have.
The next question was, so is a heat pump storage?
Yeah.
Yes.
Kim, would you like a little bit more information about what a heat pump is? I'll let you come in just one moment. Sorry, Kim. You're able to talk, Kim.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for all that information tonight. Yeah, I was just, we stayed in a unit recently that had the instantaneous electric hot water, which I thought was really great. Do you need a separate system of that for each section of the house? We live in just a regular house, but that instantaneous one was in a unit.
That really depends on the design of your house. I think you'll find with lots of house designs where you might have the kitchen in one part of the house, the master bedroom and ensuite at one end, and the main bathroom and laundry at the other end. In those types of house designs, you will often need two hot water systems anyway, whether they're electric heat pumps or solar, because there's so many meters of plumbing that's going to be required to get from wherever the heater is to wherever you need it. So part of efficiency in hot water at a design stage is trying to put all your hot water need rooms as close together as possible. Yeah. But yes, so if you're using an instantaneous electric system, often they would have one in the kitchen, but they might also then have a storage system of some sort. So either a heat pump or something else for serving the main bathroom and the laundry.
Okay, that's good explanation. I didn't think about using both of them in the same building. Just a separate issue that I spoke to Judy about earlier was using a cooktop. We have a gas stove, using an electric cooktop in the kitchen. Is it worth it to sort of get a plug-in electric cooktop so as not to use the gas stove?
We just a year ago replaced our gas, so we had a gas stove, so our hob, we replaced it with a induction cooktop and a electric oven. It cooks faster. Induction cooktops cook faster than a gas stove, and I guess because we've got solar, so in essence we have zero carbon cooking now, I would always advise people to replace their gas cooking, because the other issue with gas is that it's burning carbon and leaving, it impacts on the air quality inside a home. So particularly if you have asthma or any respiratory issues, or young children or very elderly people, the air quality is much better if you go to an induction cooktop.
Thank you. Thank you.
If that's not an option straight away, you can also get plug-in induction cooktop. So, you know, just a one element sort of, you know, a one pot plug-in induction cooktop that you can get, you know, off the internet quite cheaply as a try before you buy, sort of thing. Or if it's not economically possible to replace the whole gas stove, you know, at this stage you can, you know, do a fair bit of cooking on a one pot plug-in induction cooktop. We did that for a couple of years before we, you know, had the opportunity to actually replace our gas stove completely.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking of, that often we make changes when things break down or come to their end of life, but making that decision to make the change when the gas cooktop still works is a little bit harder. And I guess for people that are renting, they do have a gas cooktop, it's a lot more economical to look at buying a single or a double induction plug-in stove. Yeah.
Just keep in mind, I've done the same thing, and some of the cheaper ones or the single inductions don't work quite as well as a professionally installed system. So don't get put off by that. And in particular, I find with mine, for example, if I have it set on a very low temperature or low wattage, it doesn't actually turn down the temperature, so to speak. It just blasts it for shorter periods of time. So if
an on-off sort of thing.
Yeah, but I'm pretty sure Wendy will know that a good proper stovetop one doesn't do that so much.
Yeah, so we bought a particular, when we changed from our single plug-in one to a 4 hot plate, for want of a better word, one, we actually chose one as well that you could actually change the power of each of the 4 burners or the 4 so that we can set a limit to the maximum power that we want the cooktop as a whole to draw, so we can match it with our solar system much more as well. So there's some really sophisticated ones out there now, as well as some quite simple ones. So it is possible to I thoroughly recommend the induction cooktops.
Yeah, good. Thank you very much. My last question that I spoke to Judy about earlier was LED lights. Is it okay for a tenant to, because the topic of the evening was about renting, to ask for LED lights to be installed in a rental? I know that's a tough question.
They can absolutely try. And one, if they're in New South Wales, which they might not be, there are subsidies. So that could help you to convince the landlord, because they can get the government to pay most of the cost if they're replacing halogen downlights, that is. But otherwise, you can only try, and it is expensive otherwise, and you just hope that the landlord understands and sees it as an asset improvement.
Yeah, and it depends on what lights you're replacing. So if you're talking about replacing compact fluoros with LEDs, you might find that that doesn't have a huge impact on your electricity bills, because lighting is, might be, before we changed to LEDs and we're in the incandescent lights, lighting might have been, 8 to 10% of your bill sort of thing. But as it's gone down to compacts, it might only be 4% or something of your bill, depending on, the design of your house. So you might not get much joy from a landlord. However, a tenant could put in LED bulbs and take them with you when you move.
Mhm. Thank you. Great information.
Okay. And I'm sorry, it's the top of the hour, 7 o'clock. So you know what that means. It's time to finish. And I apologise for that, but it's been some great questions. Thank you so much, Wendy, and thank you so much, Seb. It's been marvellous having you here. If anyone here in the audience would like to stay and ask some questions, I'd like to talk a little about our Renew Gold Coast branch and invite you to join. But otherwise, we'll close up and a round of applause. You can't do it, but I'm going to do a round of applause. Thank you very much. It was a rich pickings. It was marvellous stuff I'd never thought of or heard of, and I'll post those details on our Renew Gold Coast Facebook page. So thank you very much, Seb and Wendy. And if you'd like to stay around, that'd be great.